जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपीजन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यशोदनन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रजजनरञ्जन यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय ओम विश्वपाद परमहंस प्रभुपादाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस ऐसी भक्त वेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विश्वपाद परमहंस प्रभुपादाचार्य अष्टोत्तर श्री श्रीमद् डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। All Gurus assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All Gurus assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All Gurus assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Gaur Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhiraye. Nashtapraye Shabadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nandagopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, verse, this is from CC Madhya Leela, chapter 18, verse number 8. Yatha Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tatha Sarva Gopishu Saivaika Vishnur Atyanta Vallabha. Yatha Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tatha Sarva Gopishu Saivaika Vishnur Atyanta Vallabha. Yatha Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tatha Sarva Gopishu Saivaika Vishnur Atyanta Vallabha. Yatha Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tatha Sarva Gopishu Saivaika Vishnur Atyanta Vallabha. Yatha Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tatha Sarva Gopishu Saivaika Vishnur Atyanta Vallabha. Yatha Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tatha Sarva Gopishu Saivaika Vishnur Atyanta Vallabha. Matajis. Yatha Radha Priya Vishnos Tasya Kundam Priyam Tatha Sarva Gopishu Saivaika Vishnur Atyanta Vallabha. Yatha, as Radha, Srimati Radharani, Priya, beloved, Vishnu, of Lord Krishna, Tasya, her, Kundam, lake, Priyam, very dear, Tatha, similarly, Sarva Gopishu, among all the gopis, Sa, she, Eva, certainly, Eka, alone, Vishnu, of Lord Krishna, Atyanta, very, Vallabha, dear. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Just as Srimati Radharani is most dear to Lord Krishna, so her lake, known as Radha Kund, is also very dear to him. Of all the gopis, Srimati Radharani is certainly the most beloved. Purport. This is a verse from Padma Puran. This is the only purport. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Shva Padantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parishana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Niti Namine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Vyayevacha पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः। पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूपस्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तशक्तिकं। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकाकांत राधाकांत नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Seeking the blessings, prayers of all Vaishnavas to be able to speak on this lofty subject matter. This is today's auspicious occasion of Bahulashtami, Sri Radhakund appearance. As we saw in this particular verse, this is from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Prabhupada is quoting that from Padma Puran, and in NOI in verse number 10, he also gives a reference of this particular verse. He says this is also from Laghu Bhagavatamrit, Uttarakhand 45. And then it's also quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita as well as Padma Puran. So, very simple verse, but talks about how dear Lord Srimati Radharani is for Lord Krishna. Similarly, her Kund, Radha Kund, is similarly dear to Lord Krishna. So, Acharya has actually explained that Radha Kund is non-different from Srimati Radharani. So it's a very lofty subject matter. It's beyond qualification. But whatever we have heard from Acharyas, from spiritual master, we will try to repeat on this particular subject matter. Because even on, particularly NOI Upadeshamrit, Rupa Goswami, in just 11 verses, what expertise he has to take from Vacho Vegam to Radha Kund. In a matter of 11 verses, he is taking from very controlling of senses up till Radha Kund. And generally devotees read only up to verse number 8. Even if it is Bhakti Shastri, it is only verse number 8. And 9, 10, 11 looks like we don't have access to it. So maybe today we can open it up and read it. But of course, even after reading, we may not get access, but at least we can get some information. So we can try to scratch a little bit of the surface just to get some information about it, to increase our reverence, to increase our respect for this great holy place. So this is known as Bahulashtami. This is the Kartik month's Krishna Paksha, 8th day of Krishna Paksha in the month of Kartik. And Rupa Goswami particularly explains the glories of Radha Kund in the last 3 verses in the Nectar of Instruction, where it is mentioned as it's the highest pedestal. Typically we talk about Vaikuntha, it's like the Parampadam, that topmost place, ultimate place to achieve. But he starts the verse with that beyond Vaikuntha is Mathurapuri. So it doesn't start with the material world, it doesn't start with the heavenly planets. The starting itself is Vaikuntha. Just like many other organizations or apparently different sub-religious principles, they may come to the level of soul. That's the conclusion of them. But rather Bhagavad Gita starts in the beginning chapter itself is right from the soul, the study of soul, science of soul. And then it takes much further, science of God and further relationships, sambandha and all that. Similarly, in this verse, in verse number 9 of Upadeshamrit of Nectar of Instruction, he starts with Vaikuntha, saying beyond Vaikuntha or better than Vaikuntha, a place better than Vaikuntha is Mathurapuri. Because in Vaikuntha, Krishna doesn't have parents. But in Mathura, he's accepting parents. Better than Mathura is Vrindavan, because in Vrindavan he performs the pastimes, particularly Ras Leela pastimes. And even better than Vrindavan is Govardhan, because there are more intimate pastimes performed in the place of Govardhan, even with the covered boys as well as with the covered girls, both of them. So very, very intimate places, and particularly Govardhan is also known as Haridasa Varya, the best of the servants of the Lord. So Govardhan is said to be even more of the highest pedestal than even Vrindavan. And further he says that even higher than Govardhan is the place known as Radhakund. Radhakund is basically situated at the foothills of Govardhan itself, but still amongst, although there are so many places in Govardhan, but the topmost place, if there is to be considered, that is Radhakund. So he starts from Vaikuntha and takes ultimately to say that Radhakund is the ultimate place, the topmost place. It is so dear that just as Srimati Radharani is so dear to Lord Krishna, similarly Radhakund is also very, very dear to Lord Krishna. So today we'll try to see a little bit about the glories of Radhakund, initial part, then we'll try to touch base on the appearance in the spiritual world, how Radhakund and Shyamkund appear in the spiritual world. Then we'll see about how Radhakund and Shyamkund appear in the Bhauma Vrindavan. Then we'll see about the exact appearance or the significance of Bahulashtami, because there are two opinions in terms of when is the exact appearance of Radhakund. And then we will see about the rediscovery of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how he rediscovered Radhakund and Shyamkund, and how he handed over or he requested the Goswamis in order to renovate or excavate the holy places in Vrindavan. So about the Goswamis, how they tirelessly spent dedicated efforts in terms of excavating these places, and in terms of we may not have time for the parikrama part. There is so many places in Radhakund and around Radhakund. Literally every inch of it has some significance. As Acharya has explained that Vrindavan is like, the dust of Vrindavan is compared to Chintamani. Every dust is compared, it's so valuable. Similarly, every square inch is extremely valuable. So many Acharyas have performed their bhajan, they have performed their pastimes in these very holy places. And our very Srila Prabhupada has received a wonderful instruction by his spiritual master in this particular holy place by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So we'll try to see whatever we can cover. So in terms of glories, as we just discussed, that much, much better than Vaikuntha, more beyond Mathura, more beyond Vrindavan, more beyond Govardhan, is this place of Radhakund. And another verse, the verse number 10, again further Rupa Goswami explains that in this world there are, majority of the people are fruitive workers. Fruitive workers means calculative. You work so much and you're getting some benefit. And then of course there is Sakam Karma and Nishkam Karma. But majority of the people fall into the category of fruitive workers. You're doing something, you want some benefit out of it. But better than the fruitive workers, or we can say amongst thousands and thousands of fruitive workers, some may be who may have understood or come closer to understand the values of life or the goal of life, or to understand about God. Amongst thousands of such people who even try to understand the values of life, those who are close to liberation, they are better. Amongst thousands of people who are close to liberation, one who is actually liberated is on a higher pedestal, is better. Amongst those who are already liberated, one who takes participation in Krishna consciousness, even apparently a neophyte devotee, is said to be higher because he is participating in, directly engaged in the process of Krishna consciousness. Amongst thousands and thousands of devotees who are participating in Krishna consciousness, one who has perfected his life as a pure devotee, one who has Krishna Prem, he is considered to be the topmost. Amongst those who are perfected their lives, amongst them, gopis are considered to be the topmost. And amongst the gopis, Srimati Radharani is considered to be the most beloved. So just as Srimati Radharani is so dear to Lord Krishna, similarly her kunda, as we see here, yatha kundam priyam tatha, her kunda, Radha Kund, is equally dear to Lord Shri Krishna. This is how he explains. And then verse number 11, Rupa Goswami again explains that Srimati Radharani is the most treasured object of Krishna's love. Like what Krishna really wants, hankers for, is for the love of Srimati Radharani. In fact, Srimati Radharani is representing Ladini potency, pleasure potency. So he says that similarly is Radha Kund. So he further explains in the verse that This place is rarely attained even by great Vaishnavas. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur in the purport, he explains, even for devotees like Narada and Shaunaka, this place is rarely achieved. But at the same time, if one simply bathes once in Radha Kund, one's pure love of Krishna is fully aroused. So that is how in the last 3 verses, Rupa Goswami explains the highest pedestal of the glory of this particular place of Radha Kund. And it is, this beautiful pastime is there, which represents the mercy of Srimati Radharani. That is a jackal who was being tortured by some street boys in Vrindavan, in the area of Govardhan, which is basically very close to the place of Radha Kund, just before what is that? Khor? Shivakhor, I think. Shivakhor, just before the beginning of the parikrama. That's the place where this particular jackal was being tormented or tortured. And when this news came to the spiritual world, Srimati Radharani and others, the gopis, they came to know about it. She actually sent Lalita Devi to look into the matter, who represents the spiritual master, how he rescues the living entity. And eventually, basically, these boys were wanting to torture and throwing stones, eventually put fire in the place where the jackal was there. So the jackal was crying out very helplessly. And when Lalita Devi comes, eventually she rescues the jackal. And finally this jackal is going at the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. So this jackal represents the living entity. Lalita Devi represents the spiritual master. And when one takes shelter of the spiritual master, when one helplessly cries out for the holy names, one actually gets the highest pedestal in terms of shelter at the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani. So this particular pastime also happens very close to the place of Radha Kund. So Acharyas explained that it is this mood that we can actually approach this holy place. Otherwise, we don't have access. What to speak of these places? Even the holy places in itself have some avaran, have some covering, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains. So unless we approach in the proper mood, we will only get some information and we will not be able to delve further into the deeper subject matters. So Acharyas explain that in the spiritual world, Radha Kund appears in a very unique way. Shri Shri Radha Vrindavan Chandra Bhagavan ki jai, Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maiya ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Shri Gauranitai ki jai. In a very unique way, this appearance of this Radha Kund and Shyama Kund takes place in the spiritual world. Ultimately, these are Nitya Leela, but still for the particular event has happened, this has been explained like this, that once Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani were sitting on a bejeweled throne, on a high pedestal, golden throne, and when they were sitting together, they were so absorbed about each other. Sometimes when we are away from the person, then we think about the person. There is remembrance of the person. But here Radha and Krishna are together sitting on the bejeweled throne, and yet they are absorbed about each other. Their absorption became so intense that Lord Shri Krishna assumes the form of Srimati Radharani and assumes the emotions of Srimati Radharani. And he starts running into the forest, searching for Srimati Radharani. So Srimati Radharani is sitting just next, but he assumes her form, assumes her emotions, and starts running deep into the forest, searching for Srimati Radharani. When Srimati Radharani sees this, she also feels great intense emotions, and she also assumes the form of Krishna, assumes the emotions of Krishna, and she also starts running deep in the forest, searching for Krishna. So when both of them are searching, both of them were together, but because of the intense emotions, they feel that great separation, and when they are searching for each other, they are crying. They are crying tears of separation. And the gopis are in great turmoil. Sometimes when the parents have disturbance, sometimes when the parents have difference of opinions, the children get disturbed. What is this? What's happening? So here Krishna is running for Srimati Radharani and Radharani is running for Krishna. And the gopis are very disturbed. Now what to do? Both of them are in such a state that we are not able to revive them. So they ultimately go to Lord Krishna and explain, saying that Srimati Radharani is in great separation from you. So only when Krishna hears this, then he comes to his senses and wants to meet Srimati Radharani. So the gopis, it is described that they teach him a mantra by which you can invoke Radharani's presence. So Lord Krishna chants the mantra. Eventually Srimati Radharani appears. And when Srimati Radharani appears, Lord Krishna explains that I am actually your servant. And I am in this deep mood of servitorship. I have cried so much of tears of separation from you. And similarly, you have cried so much of tears of separation. So these tears, the tears that come from your eyes, is going to be known as Shri Radha Kund. And the tears of separation which I have cried, this pool of water, this pond of water which has happened, which has accumulated here, is going to be called as Shyam Kund. So this is how Radha Kund and Shyam Kund, which are basically considered as tears out of separation from each other. Which is why when we approach this place, it is said to be that one has to be extremely, extremely cautious. There were times when even when Prabhupada had gone along with some of his disciples, and when he had permitted them to take bath, they had very playfully performed playful pastimes in the waters of Radha Kund, which was disapproved by Srila Prabhupada, said that this is an extraordinarily holy place. As Rupa Goswami explains in the 11th verse, even devotees like Narada and Shaunaka, it is difficult for them to attain this place. So what to speak of ordinary living entities. So one has to approach this place in a very, very reverential mood. So that's how it appears, the Radha Kund and Shyam Kund appear in the spiritual world. In the Brahma Vrindavan, they appear after this pastime of Aristasur, when Krishna kills Aristasur. Now also there is a Aritagram, there is a village named after Aristasur, Arishtagram, and eventually it becomes as Aritagram. Later on, Lord Chaitanya comes to this place where he renovates, where he rather rediscovers this particular place. But in the appearance of Bhauma Vrindavan, after the killing of Aristasur, actually Aristasur was so huge, it is described that his hump would actually almost touch the clouds. Rupa Goswami explains that after he was killed, the bones, when the bones were accumulated, they became such a huge mountain that Nalakuber and Manigira, the associates of Lord Shiva, they felt it is Mount Kailash, and they started climbing on it, thinking that they will reach Kailash if they climb this at the top. So he actually was so huge, and obviously he tortured the Vrindavan Vasis. It is described when he entered Vrindavan, practically those who were the ladies who were pregnant, practically lost their babies. So he actually caused a lot of torture for the Vrajavasis, and this is something which Krishna does not like. If you want to deal, you can deal with me. You can fight with me. But if you touch my devotees, if you disturb my devotees, then I cannot tolerate that. So then there is a wonderful fight between Lord Shri Krishna and Aristasur. It is Acharya again explained. It's like when he comes running, charging, it is described that Lord Krishna takes him by the horns and then swirls him. At one point in time, it is described, Acharya explained, like washing, how a person washes clothes. That you put the cloth on the stone, like that. Aristasur was basically being used as if washing the clothes. He was just banging him on the ground. So eventually, when Aristasur was killed, the gopis, when Krishna in Govardhan, when he's associating with the gopis say that you are now inflicted with sinful reactions. And Krishna says, why? He says, you killed a Brahmana, you killed a bull. In fact, bull is representing religion. Bull represents religion. You have killed a personification of a religion. And Krishna is saying that, well, he was in the form of an asura. How can you say I have killed a bull? Although he was in the form of a bull, but actually he was an asura. And the gopis are arguing that although he was an asura, he was in the form of a bull. And we can see how gopis are so learned also. They are apparently village girls, but they quote saying that when Indra killed Vritrasur, he had to run around the universe in terms of trying to get rid of the sinful reactions. Because Vritrasur was not only a Brahmana, he was son of Twashta, produced by Twashta. At the same time, he was a very, very pure devotee. But he happened to be in the form of the body of a Asura. So the gopis argue like this. So then Krishna says, okay, then what do you expect me to do? So if I have killed, because he was in the form of a Asura, I have killed him. In fact, I have rescued Vrindavan from his torture. But the gopis say that you have to atone for this particular act. So Krishna is asking, how do I atone? And the gopis say that you can take bath, go to all the holy places and take your holy dip in all the holy places. And Krishna says, why should I go to all the holy places? I can invoke all the holy places right here. Even when his father Nanda Maharaj, at one point of time when he wanted to go to Prayag, Krishna is asking, where are you going? And Nanda Maharaj says, tomorrow I am going to Prayag. And when Lord Krishna asks, why do you want to go to Prayag? It's a very, very holy place and I want to take my bath. But you don't have to go out of Vrindavan. Everything is here. You don't even have to step out of Vrindavan to go to any other holy place. That's why the next day when Nanda Maharaj comes to take his holy bath early in the morning, he finds Prayagraj personified. In Lotpot, he was rolling around the ground. And when Nanda Maharaj asks, who are you? And he says, I am Prayagraj. So Nanda Maharaj says, you are Prayagraj? Why have you come here? And he says, I have come here to become purified. All the people come to my waters and deposit their sins. And I come here. It was Pavan Sarovar? Pavan Sarovar. He says, I come here to take my bath so that I can get purified of all the sinful reaction which is accumulated in my holy rivers. Nanda Maharaj cancelled this trip. He says, why do I need to go there? He's here only. So if he can arrange for his father, similarly here now Krishna is invoking all the holy rivers and saying that right from Bhogavati, is actually from the left foot, heels of his left foot, he makes a small, he digs the place and then he invokes Bhogavati and then the heavenly waters and then this Narmada, Kaveri, Ganga, Yamuna and all these holy rivers, all are invoked. And when the gopis say that, well, we don't see anything, we don't see there is something special, just some waters are coming. So Krishna is saying, requesting all these holy rivers to also vocalize, speak out. I am Narmada, I am Kaveri, I am Ganga, I am Yamuna. So then the gopis, basically it is a beautiful, sweet pastime. To add some spice, gopis are having some dialogues like this in order to invoke or bring the sweetness out of this pastime. So eventually all the holy rivers are invoked and they form the place known as Shamkund. And when Shamkund is formed, Lord Krishna takes his bath in Shamkund and says, now I am purified. You accused me of killing this bull and now I have atoned for it. But there are two versions. One, it says that you have been accumulated by the sin of supporting this Asura who actually came to torture the Vrajavasis. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that Lord Krishna asks, what religious duties you have performed? I have built this kund, Shamkund here. What religious duties you have performed? So all the gopis, they come together, they discuss, and Srimati Radharani says, okay, we will build a bigger kund than yours, a better kund than yours. Then Srimati Radharani and all the gopis discuss together, and Lord Krishna is asking, how will you do that? And they find the hooves of Aristasur when he was galloping in order to charge Krishna. The hooves, that itself was such a huge place. It was, as we saw, about the size of Aristasur. So naturally his hooves also would be huge. And taking that as a starting point, they start digging. Maharaj gives one lecture on this, saying, difficulties converted into opportunities. The hooves of Aristasur are the actual starting point for this highest ultimate place of Sri Radha Kund. And because they start digging from their bangles, it is also called Kanchana Kund. That is the innermost part of the Sri Radha Kund. So they start digging with the bangles. And Lord Krishna is looking at it. How long you are going to take, if you start digging with bangles and all the gopi, although the number is sort of unlimited, countless, but still how long it may take. And eventually Krishna says that why don't you take your bath in Sham Kund? I already invoked all the holy rivers. And they say that, well, it was holy, but after you have taken bath, your sin is also inflicted in those waters. We are not going to touch these waters. So then Krishna says, where are you going to get your waters from? So the gopis say that we will get our waters from Manasi Ganga. So the gopis made a long line, like how the Vanaras made a Ram Setu, like a long line from Manasi Ganga all the way up to Radha Kund here, and they were trying to get waters from there. And Lord Krishna is seeing how much they are struggling in order to get some waters. I can just invoke, and all the holy places will be here in no moment. So Krishna is requesting again and again. But when the gopis are not adhering to that, eventually Lord Krishna tells the holy places personified, you please go and approach Srimati Radhika and offer your proposal, offer your petition. When the holy places personified, rivers personified, when they approach Srimati Radharani asks, what is your petition? And they say that, please allow us to render some service. And please allow us to fill your kund with our waters. So Srimati Radharani says, so be it. And that's how the waters, it is said that the waters from the Sham Kund crashed open from the wall and it enters Radha Kund. And then after that, Srimati Radharani says, oh, your kund is also very nice. I will also take bath in your kund. And Lord Krishna says, your kund is very, very special. Just as you are so dear to me, similarly, this Radha Kund, your kund is going to be extremely dear to me. And anybody who takes bath in this particular kund will get Krishna Prem, love of God. So that's how they settle amongst each other. And that's how Radha Kund and Sham Kund appear in Bhauma Vrindavan. But there are some little differences in terms of opinions. Sometimes acharyas also have differences of opinions in terms of when this pastime took place. Because Bahulashtami is 8th day of Krishna Paksh of Kartik month. Whereas acharyas explain that when Arishtasur was killed, that was Chaitra Purnima. When that is mentioned in by Jiva Goswami. And eventually, that's why when Lord Chaitanya comes to Vrindavan, that is in 1514. When he comes to Vrindavan, when he comes about 3-4 months when he is here from Mathura to Vrindavan, the 12 forests of Vrindavan, eventually to Govardhan, he arrives in the area of Radha Kund on the day of Bahulashtami. So it is that particular day when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually rediscovered this place. As it typically happens in this material world, things get lost over a period of time, which is why even Lord Chaitanya told the Goswamis, you please excavate the holy places. So this is a perennial feature of this material world. Even the best of the holy places get covered over a period of time. Even for that matter, even Jagannath temple, so huge, even such a huge temple, such a holy place also at some time gets covered over. And this is Krishna's eternal pastimes. Either he himself or through some of his representatives, he ensures that these lost holy places again come back to surface. That is how devotees keep getting services and things get lost over a period of time, which is the eternal feature of this material world. Because material world means things have to go down, just like gravitational force. So eventually, over a period of time, it's a cyclic way. It gets covered over. Again, either the Lord himself or his representatives would ensure that how these holy places are rediscovered again. So for this, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself particularly came on the day of Bahulashtami, so now there is a place, Mahaprabhu Baitak, Chaitanya Baitak, just on the banks of Radha Kund, where he was sitting and he was meditating. Because when he had come, when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had come, it is described, it was just 12 by 12 feet. It's almost the size of a room. Two puddles, or we can say two small puddles in a paddy fields. It would not even be considered as a kund. It was so small. But because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Radha Krishna Nahi Anya, he is both Radha and Krishna, naturally he understands that this is the very same holy place. And when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu takes his bath, he exhibits ecstatic emotions. When the people around see, they are very astonished seeing this beautiful golden form of Lord Chaitanya exhibiting these ecstatic symptoms. Because until then, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has been asking, he has been inquiring, he has arrived in the place of Govardhan and he is inquiring to the local people, where is Radha Kund and Sham Kund? Now also when we go to many of the holy places, sometimes we inquire, where is these holy places? And the names we know, are from Chaitanya Charitamrita or from the scriptures that we are reading, Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas have given. But sometimes when you go to the local place, they don't know by those names. So sometimes there is a gap. They are not able to relate what we are talking. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was asking about Radha Kund and Sham Kund, the local people say that we have heard this kind of a reference in Padma Puran. We have heard about it. But what we know is here there is only Gauri Khet and Kali Khet. There were two ponds which they referred to as Gauri Khet and Kali Khet, which Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu eventually established or rediscovered that this is the actual place, which is Radha Kund and Sham Kund. So sitting on that, there are two tamal trees, the Mahaprabhu Baitak at the Parikrama Marg of Radha Kund, where he actually meditated and eventually rediscovered this particular holy place. It is said that after he rediscovered this place, Mahaprabhu particularly took the dust of the Radha Kund, the mud of Radha Kund, applied his tilak, actually all over the 12 places on his body, and started singing the glorification of Radha Kund. So this was something Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has done, and something or a lot of things he left for his associates. Then eventually he's telling the Goswamis, you please excavate these holy places. So particularly Raghunath Das Goswami has a very key role in terms of excavating, in terms of particularly Radha Kund. Otherwise Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, along with other Goswamis, they have come together to excavate many holy places, establish the temples, written many literatures. But as far as Radha Kund is concerned, Raghunath Das Goswami has a very key role. And eventually, he requests Jiva Goswami to look into the excavation part in terms of the practicality of it. But Srila Raghunath Das Goswami has a very key role. So when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disappeared from this world, one of his close associates, Swarup Damodar Goswami, he also disappears very soon. Because these associates are unable to tolerate the separation from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So even Raghunath Das Goswami, who was at times he was called as Swarupera Raghu, he was under the custody of Swarup Damodar Goswami. So Raghunath Das Goswami also considered, let me also give up my life. Let me go to Govardhan and jump from there. Like Sanatana Goswami earlier had thought of going under the Rath Yatra cart. So Raghunath Das Goswami is considering, let me give up my life. And when he is going to Vrindavan, even for this they are approaching Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami and asking for permission. I would like to commit suicide. I would like to give up my life. So please give me permission. Whereas Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, they say that rather than you giving up your life, you please give life to us. You give life to us. And how can you do that? By speaking on the pastimes of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You have associated so closely with Swarup Damodar Goswami. You have associated so closely with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stayed in Jagannath Puri for last 18 years of his life. So much you have witnessed. And you can relay that. You can speak about the glories of Lord Chaitanya and what you have witnessed, and that would actually give life to us. So eventually Raghunath Das Goswami agrees, and that's how we find practically every day on the banks of Radha Kund, 3 hours of Chaitanya Katha. Chaitanya Leela has been spoken on the banks of Radha Kund. So that's, I mean, there are multiple reasons for which this particular place is so holy, and naturally that's why all the acharyas have gone and performed their bhajan and stayed in these holy places. So when Raghunath Das Goswami agrees to stay in this particular place, the Goswamis say that that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given you Govardhan Shila and Gunjamala. By giving you Govardhan Shila, Mahaprabhu has given you a residence in Govardhan, at the foothills of Govardhan. And by giving you Gunjamala, he has given you the worship of Srimati Radharani. So if you stay here at Radhakund, you are staying at the foothills of Govardhan. At the same time, this is the place, ultimate place of worship, highest pedestal. You can please stay here and give life to us. So this is how Raghunath Das Goswami agreed to stay there. So when he started thinking about, since Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has requested for excavation of the holy places, so once when he was performing his bhajan, he had this thought, this is not like the distraction that we have in our chanting, our planning and other things. But when he was doing his bhajan, he just had a thought that if we can build a kund around this place, proper kund, like a bathing ghat, because people would actually cross through a thick layer of mud in order to go to Radha Kund. As mentioned, it was hardly 12 by 12 feet. So in order to reach that place, you have to cross through a sort of thick layer of mud. So he thought if we can make this place very nice, accessible for everybody. So he had this proposal, or had this thought in his mind, desire, and immediately condemned himself, thinking that, oh, if I have to do this, then it would involve Lakshmi. Then it would involve, my bhajan would be disturbed. Then immediately condemned himself and again continued his bhajan, resumed his bhajan. And because when a pure devotee has strong desires, when a pure devotee wants to serve Krishna, Radha Krishna, the Supreme Lord make arrangement. So there was one wealthy person who had a desire to give a lot of wealth in Badrinath, Badrikashram. He had gone there all the way to Badrinath, and next day he was going to offer his wealth. One place it is mentioned he was named as Sampanna. Some places it's not mentioned, name is not mentioned. So when he was going to offer the next day, Lord Badrinath comes in his dream, in his vision, and says that instead of offering it here, you can offer this wealth to Raghunath Das Goswami, who is sitting at the foothills of Govardhan. You can offer him this wealth. So he comes now imagine going all the way to Badrinath and not being able to offer what you actually desired. But anyway, Badrinath's instruction, so instruction is given more weightage than what we want to do. So he comes all the way back to Vrindavan, to Govardhan, and meets Raghunath Das Goswami and says that here is a lot of wealth. And Raghunath Goswami says, what will I do with all this wealth? Don't disturb my bhajan. And then he says, no, actually, Lord Badrinath himself has come in my dream, in my vision, and requested me to offer this wealth for you. So then Raghunath Das Goswami understood that this is Lord Badrinath's arrangement for building or excavating this holy place of Radha Kund. So eventually he engages Jiva Goswami into the practical matters of the excavation part, because it's a huge task. From 12 by 12 feet to what it is today, it is a huge place. So Kanchan Kund, the innermost portion of Radha Kund, and similarly for Sham Kund, the innermost portion is Vajra Kund, it is mentioned, because Vajranabh, he also played a lot of role in terms of excavating the holy places, the great grandson of Lord Shri Krishna. Parikshit Maharaj made him the king when he was ruling. That time he excavated a lot of holy places. So that is the Vajra Kund is also there. So when this Radha Kund was built, then eventually Raghunath Das Goswami sees that the local people are using this particular waters. Naturally for local people, the river's waters or the skund, then this is used for bathing, then this may be used for washing the clothes, then this is used for maybe washing the utensils and all that. So when he saw that people are not approaching these waters with a great reverence and using it for so many personal purposes, then he thought of digging a well nearby so that the local people can use these waters, and the waters of Radhakund and Shamkund can be approached very reverentially only for the holy bath. And when the workers were digging this place on the well, then eventually they come across a stone. They come across, eventually it was revealed that it was Govardhan himself, part of Govardhan, and there was bleeding happening at that place. So the workers got alarmed and they immediately reported to Raghunathas Goswami, saying that while digging, we hit across some solid object, and there was blood coming out of it. So, and on that same night, Raghunathas Goswami gets a vision, a dream, that Govardhan himself, Lord Krishna in the form of Govardhan, appears to Raghunathas Goswami, and he says that while the people were digging, what you have come across, the solid object, is actually the tongue of Govardhan. You can take it out from there and install it in a temple, which now is called as Jiva Mandir, the tongue of Govardhan, which is kept installed in a temple. In that particular temple, there are very beautiful paintings of Lord Chaitanya and Raghunathas Goswami across the parikrama. So that's how we established the Jiva, or the tongue of Govardhan. Similarly, while excavating the place of Shamkund, like it is described that Shamkund is not square shaped. So there were trees across, and when they were about to cut the trees, again Yudhishthira Maharaj, in the night, he comes in a dream or vision to Raghunathas Goswami, saying that we are Pancha Pandavas, the 5 Pandavas, who are staying here in order to witness the beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Please allow us some residence here. So considering that, Raghunathas Goswami ensured that these trees are not cut, which is why today also Shamkund is not a square shaped, it's a little different shaped. And this is how he was performing bhajan. Maharaj explains that Raghunathas Goswami used to offer 2,000 obeisances to the Vaishnavas, 1,000 obeisances to Radhakund. He would take bath in the holy place in Radhakund 3 times a day, and he would drink not charanamrita, buttermilk, 3 drops of buttermilk. So very unique combination. 3 times a bath and 3 drops of buttermilk. That was his only subsistence. He would sleep for about 1.5 hours. Not in the afternoon, it was only the whole part. So this is such unique contribution of these acharyas, and when they performed their bhajan, how intense their bhajan would be. So when Raghunathas Goswami is performing bhajan there, at one point of time, Lord Krishna himself comes, and he is standing with a stick. On the other side of the river, or the water body, there are 2 tigers who are drinking water. And Raghunathas Goswami is oblivious, and he is performing his bhajan. And he's lost, he's not even looking at it. Just like, when Daksha enters the arena, Lord Shiva is deep in meditation. He's not even aware. Everybody is getting up in order to respect him. But Lord Shiva did not even look at him in order to respect or respond. Similarly, Raghunathas Goswami was intensely performing his bhajan, and he was oblivious of what's happening outside. But the Goswamis, they described to him, saying that this is what we witnessed, that in order to protect you from these tigers, Lord Krishna himself has come standing with a stick. This is not proper. We are here to serve Radha and Krishna. We are not here to take service from them. So this is one episode which happened here. Similarly, at another point of time, when Raghunathas Goswami is performing his bhajan, it was again the midday sun, hot sunlight is falling on his body, on his head, and again he's oblivious. He's not aware of what difficulty is there. But Srimati Radharani is coming and offering her pallu in order to protect the Raghunathas Goswami from the sunlight. So when the Goswami see this, particularly I think Sanatana Goswami, and he says, this is not proper. We are here to serve our worshipable lords, Radha and Krishna. It is not proper that they are coming to serve us. So if you so desire, it is better that you accept a bhajan kutir, so that they are not disturbed. That you because you are so oblivious in your bhajan, it should not happen that Radha and Krishna are coming and serving us. It is absolutely not proper at all. So eventually Raghunath Goswami accepts the bhajan kutir, and this is that purest of holy place where Raghunath Goswami, along with so many Vaishnavas sitting together, and Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami happens to be in the audience, where he is speaking this glorious pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Eventually, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, who took notes very nicely, eventually with his notes and Swarup Damodar Goswami's Kadacha and Murari Gupta's Kadacha, so many other things, but particularly what Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's main reference was what he heard from Raghunath Goswami, and forms this beautiful book of Chaitanya Charitamrita. And then there is glorious pastime in terms of printing it. How much Prabhupada was so desperate in terms of printing this particular book, and that also in a sort of emergency, in a matter of 2 months. It says, just in 2 months you have to print this book. So Prabhupada had a great affinity, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had a great affinity for this great literature of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and those pastimes have been spoken and on the banks of Radhakund. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's Bhajan Kutir is there, where he sat and meditated and wrote this Chaitanya Charitamrita. So it's practically filled with the holy places. As one time when I had gone to Bombay in the temple, one devotee was saying, the place where you're standing, like 1 square feet, he says, that's costing about 60,000 rupees. And this was about maybe 10 years before, so obviously the rates would have increased. You can understand 1 square feet was costing 60,000 rupees. We are talking about Bombay. So this is material calculation. From a spiritual calculation, the place like Radhakund is unlimitedly, cannot be calculated, which is why practically every inch of it, there are so many acharyas have occupied the holy places, or rather than occupying, we can say they have performed their bhajan, and in memory of their bhajans, there are so many structures, samadhi, bhajan kutirs, and temples constructed in the memory of those acharyas. Which is why when we go to Radhakund, we'll find, practically in a lane, here there is a temple, left side you go, there is a temple, right side you go, there is a temple. You do parikrama, there are 2 more temples. So practically every inch is covered there, because the place is so holy. And naturally, because the place is so holy, unfortunately, sometimes as conditioned souls, one may take it very cheaply, that we are also in Vrindavan, in Govardhan, in Radhakund. But Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, in very strong words, he says that if we don't approach Radhakund properly, we will actually be in Narakakund, not in Radhakund. We may think that we are approaching Radhakund, but if we are not having proper consciousness, we will not even enter that place. No access to that place. And that's why the proper mood in terms of begging for the mercy, we are ultimately not qualified, but we can beg for the mercy. Just like in the mood of that jackal who was being tortured by the street urchins of Vrindavan, and eventually Lalita Sakhi was sent to rescue this jackal. In the helpless mood that this jackal cried, similarly in the helpless mood, we can beg for the mercy, we can beg for the pure devotional service. Because in so many places, people usually come, even to the temple when people come, they may come with so many pious inclinations or desires. But when we approach these kind of holy places, one has to be extremely conscious in terms of what desires we have. And especially these places have the potency in order to give us the highest pedestal of Krishna Prem or love of Godhead. So in a very great reverential mood, devotees do parikrama or in a very great, extraordinarily reverential mood, sometimes devotees take a bath with the permission of whatever spiritual master or senior devotees, or there is special permissions. But otherwise, this place is so very holy. And one more last, just end with this, that how Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he met our Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, and on the banks of Radha Kund, he had mentioned that so many different devotees have, some arguments, and people are fighting over some petty piece of land, and Ganga sea facing and all that, and Agun Jalbe, there's fire in the mutt. And eventually he says that there was this wealthy disciple who had made a temple in Bagh Bazar, marble temple in Bagh Bazar. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that I would like to sell off that temple, sell off those marbles, and eventually if that Lakshmi can be utilized in printing the books. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur gave this very eternal instruction to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, that whenever you get money, print books and distribute books. And this is something which Srila Prabhupada has taken it to his heart, as a life and soul. And we can see that following that, when Srila Prabhupada establishes so many temples, and in terms of making so many disciples, how he preserves the instruction given by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and made this as his very cherished goal in life. So it's a very, very extraordinarily holy places. As we said, even the Parikrama Marg, practically every inch is covered. And all the four corners, there are Lord Shiva temples, in terms of Lord Shiva is offering protection to these holy places. People should not interfere in these holy places unnecessarily. There's a facility of Lord Shiva being in all the four corners. That's how the Acharyas have established these holy places. So in very great reverential mood is what one can approach, because just as Srimati Radharani is so dear to Lord Krishna, similarly her Kund, Radha Kund, is also extremely dear to Lord Shri Krishna. So following in the footsteps of the Acharyas, that we have tried to know a little bit more about Shri Radha Kund, so that we can approach her with more reverence, and we can pray for the ultimate desire of Krishna Prem. Hare Krishna. Srimad Radha Kunda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.
नमाम्बेश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमानं नमामि यशोदावियोलोकालाद्ववमाना परामृष्टमात्यन्तदौ द्रुतगोप्या योलोकालाद्ववमाना रुदन्तं मुहुर्नेत्रयुग्मं मृजन्तं कराम्बोजयुग्मेन सतं कनेत्रा युग्मं मृजन्तं मुहुश्वासकम्पत्रिरेखां ककण्ठा स्थितग्रैवदामोदरं भक्तिबद्धा पत्रिरेखां ककण्ठा इति दृक्स्वलीलाभिरानन्दकुण्डे स्वघोषनिमज्जन्तम् आख्यापयन्ता आनन्दकुण्डे तदीयेषु भक्तैर्जितत्वं पुनः प्रेमतस्तंशतावृत्ति वन्दे वरं देवं मोक्षं न मोक्षं वदीवा न चान्ये वृणेऽहं वरेषदपिह मोक्षं न मोक्षं वदीवा इदं ते वपुर्नाथ गोपाल बाला सदा मे मनस्य वीरस्त किमन्ये वपुर्नाथ गोपाल बाला इदं ते मुखाम्भोजमत्यन्तनीले वृतकुन्तले स्निग्धरक्तश्च गोप्या स्निग्धरक्त मुहुश्लुम्बियं रक्तधरां मे मनस्य विरास्तमलां लक्ष्मलाभय मुहुश्लुम्बितां बिम्बरक्तधरां मे मनस्य नमो देव दामोदर अनंत विष्णु प्रसिद्ध प्रभो दुख जलब्धिमग्न कृपा दृष्टि वृष्णादि दीनं बतानु गृहाणेश मामज्ञ मेधक्षे दृश्ये तानो कुबेरात्मजो बद्ध मूर्ते अद्वैत त्वया मोचितो भक्ति भजो कृतो च तथा प्रेम भक्तिं स्वकाम प्रयच्छ न मोक्षे ग्रहो में स्त्री दामोदरे नमस्ते स्तुधाम्नि स्फुरदीप्तिधान् मे त्वदीयोदरायाथ विश्वस्य धान्मे दीप्तिधान् मे त्वदीयो नमो राधिकाय त्वदीय प्रियाय नमोऽनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यः नमो राधिकाय त्वदीय प्रियाय नमोऽनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यः नमां विश्वरं सच्चिदानन्दरूपं लसत्कुण्डलं गोकुले व्रजमानं नमामि हो यशोदाभियो लोकलद्भवमानं परामृष्टमत्यन्तदौद्रुतगोप्या हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 राम हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radhe Jaya Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Radha Damodar Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Shri Radhe Jaya Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radha Vrindavan Chandra Radhe Jaya Jagannatha Jagannatha Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Jagannatha Jagannatha Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jai Shri Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai 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 Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Prabhupada